Okay. In this question, they want us to write it as a single power, and they wanted to evaluate, and I didn't write it in, but they actually want us to keep things in a rational form. So they're looking for if we have a value like this, where it's kind of a decimal or a fraction, they want us to finish it off as a radical, some root of some base number, okay? So in order to do that, or to make it simple for myself, I'm going to try to convert these decimals into fractions, just so we can work with everything as a fraction and we can remember our fraction rules when going through this. Now, it's not wrong to work with it as decimal, but eventually we will be putting it into a fraction form. So I'm just going to start by doing that to start it off. Also, we notice that both the bases are the same, so we can use our laws of exponents. Okay. For instance, this being a power of a power, so we're going to multiply the values, and then whatever's left, because this is division, we'll subtract the values of the powers there. So first one's first. We have 16. What would be kind of a lowest form I could write 2.5 as? Well, if we write it as a mixed fraction means we have 2, and 0.5 is known as what? A half, right. Okay, but we want to write this as an improper fraction, so how would this be written?
5 over 2.
Exactly. We're going to leave that as 5 over 2. So we have now negative 5 over 2. Okay. And we're also going to change our 0.2. 0.2, do you know how we can turn that into a fraction the fastest?
Negative 1 over 5.
That's right. You usually would start it as 2 over 10, but you're right. It evaluates to negative 1 over 5. So we get negative a fifth. Good. And on the bottom, we still have our base 16 to the power of 3 over 4. Okay, so because this is a power of a power, we're going to be multiplying these exponents. So I'll kind of do it on the side. Negative 5 over 2 multiplied by negative 1 over 5. Now, this is a negative value times a negative value. So our answer is going to be a positive number. And when we multiply fractions, we do the top by the top and the bottom by the bottom. So 5 by 1 will give us 5. And 2 by 5 will give us 10. And how can we rewrite that as a simpler fraction?
1/2.
That's right, a half. So already, we change this numerator as 16 to the power of a half. Okay. And this is still divided by 16 over 3 over 4. Now, because this is division, that means we have to subtract these values. So I have a half subtract 3 over 4. But in order to subtract fractions, what do I need to have?
Common denominator.
Yeah, so how can I make these so they have common denominators?
2 over 4 minus 3 over 4.
Exactly. All we did was multiply the top and the bottom of this by 2. Good. So when we do that, our answer is automatically going to be over what number?
4.
Yeah. And 2 subtract 3 will give us?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. Great. So we have negative a quarter this turns into. So we have 16 to the power of negative 1/4. Okay. Negative 1/4. Well, to make it simpler for myself, I want this to be a positive fraction. So I'm going to think of this 16 as a fraction itself. And how can we turn this into a positive fraction? The exponent, that is, the positive exponent.
Bring it to the bottom of the...
Which bring what to the bottom?
So it would be...
Yeah, tell me what it would say.
16 over 1 to 4?
The exponent actually ends up staying in the same spot. Okay, so maybe you've forgotten this rule, but what we do if we have, say it's an example where I have a value of x to the power of negative 2. Well, I think of x as a fraction itself. Okay, 5 over, or x over 1. And then from there, to make this 2 positive, I can rewrite it as or positive 2, 1 over x.
Right.
Okay, and it's technically being applied to both the 1 on the bottom and the x here. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to invert this. So this then becomes 1 over 16, still all to the power of a quarter. How can we write that as a radical number? 1/4. How do we write it as a root? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
No? Okay, so if we have a fraction here, so if we have an exponent of the fraction, I'll do another rule here. Exponent of a fraction, so we usually use the letters m and n, okay? This can be rewritten as the m root of x, and then you could say to the power of n.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is going to be the fourth root, and because there's two numbers or a fraction, we have to find the fourth root of both 1 and 16. So when I go to rewrite this as a radical, I'm going to have the fourth root of 1, and we're going to have the fourth root of 16. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and technically, because that 1 was on top, right? That's where that n comes in. Still the power of 1. Well, is the power of 1 going to change anything?
No.
No, so that's why they usually don't write that part in. So we have the fourth root. So now we work from here. The fourth root of 1. How do we evaluate that? What number times itself 4 times equals 1?
1.
1. That's done. The tougher part is the fourth root of 16. What number times itself 4 times is 16?
4.
Let's try it. 4 by 4 is already 16.
Oh,
So that's only
2.
twice. All right, let's try 2. 2 by 2 is 4. By another 2 is 8. By another 2 is 16. So, whoops, by another 2 is 16. So perfect, that works out. So when we evaluate this, we end up with a value of a half in the end. So a lot of old rules we kind of have to remember when going through a question like this. And this was a tougher one. There's quite a bit to do and remember in this question.